From Del Rio, Texas, Rob Wade and Robert Garza. Two guys who dive. This episode of Two Guys Who Dive, recorded Saturday, 30 June 2012, episode 22. Alone Again, Naturally. Well, here we are once again with the weekly podcast of Two Guys Who Dive, and you will notice that there is nobody to my immediate left here. Your immediate right. That's right. Scuba Bob, once again, is not here. Of course, he's leaving me alone again, naturally.
In my heart indeed, I truly am indeed alone again, naturally. Alone again. Naturally.
Spending 6 weeks at number one on the Billboard charts in 1972, that's Gilbert O'Sullivan with Alone Again, Naturally. So, yeah, here I am, a little bit of humor there. I'm starting to tease Scuba Bob about making an epidemic about not being here. He's coming up with more and more excuses and more interesting reasons not to be here. No, evidently he's in San Antonio, which is about a 2.5 hour. Actually, if you're going to the airport, a 3-hour drive, 3-hour tour to pick up his brother at the airport, and evidently it was delayed. So we'll let him slide this time, and because he didn't let me know until it was way too late, wasn't able to get any of our sometimes co-host or special guest to drop in and add their point of view to what we'll be talking about today. So it's been an interesting week, a lot of challenges. The weather here in Del Rio has been getting quite toasty. It's been pretty consistently well over 100 every day. So on the upside, for those of us who really enjoy the heat, the upside, of course, is that it heats the lake up. The downside, of course, is that it also dries up the area. So you have a lot of folks that are drawing more water from our reservoir, and also downstream, because our lake is created by the Amistad Dam, which dams up the Rio Grande, and where the Rio Grande and the Devil's River meet. And so we hold back water. It's flood control, basically. And there are several dams up and down the Rio Grande used for building up these reservoirs. Well, a lot of the land south of us is irrigated land, so they require a lot of water to irrigate for the agriculture and ranch lands for the livestock that they're raising. So what that's created is just an ever worsening issue with lake levels here at Lake Amistad, and it just shocks me every time. It seems like every week I go out there, the lake has dropped dramatically, which is sad to say, but it gets worse and worse. There's a regular place that we go. We call Scuba Cove, that is a protected area, so no motorized craft can go in there. It's basically just for swimming and diving. Matter of fact, you can't even fish in there now, which is great, because as a diver, one of the hazards that we face in diving in areas like this, of course, is fishing line and lures, and because more often than not what you find is some fisherman has gotten it snagged on the brush there trying to catch a bass or whatever, and gets snagged, so they end up cutting the line and it just hangs there. Well, in water that is of the condition of Lake Amistad, it's often very difficult to see those those monofilament lines hanging out there. And so you'll be swimming along and suddenly you're snagged up in those. And of course, part of the course, we teach you the skills to deal with those things, not to freak out. And you can handle those things by whipping out your dive knife or your dive shears if you have those, or if it's wrapped around your scuba tank. Of course, you can actually slide out of your gear while you're breathing on the regulator, and you can remove the line or cut the line free, and then put the gear back on and continue your dive, or have your dive buddy do that if you are diving with a buddy. So that tends to be a problem. So I'm personally happy to see that that fishing has been banned in that area. And still you have some folks that show up there that forget that they're not supposed to dive there. Even though there are signs posted, let's see if I can no, I'm not going to do that. See if I can bring up this new sign that's out there. I was really shocked today to see this thing. We were, of course, doing some diving today and headed out to Scuba Cove. Let's see if I can find this. There it is. This is pretty cool. It was a faded sign that was out there. I mean, you could barely read what it said, and it said bank fishing and things like that. Well, of course, then, in contradiction to that, they had signs posted as you pull up into the circular parking area overlooking the cove. They had signs there posted saying no fishing, and a sign posted on the dock that has since, of course, gone into disrepair that said no fishing, and you still saw people fishing. Well, thankfully, now it appears that they've got a shiny new sign out there that points you further down the dirt road to look at the viewpoint, the picnic area, and then dive cove, scuba, and swimming. And I was absolutely ecstatic that they've got that up. So, good job, y'all. That is fantastic. So went there, had a good dive. The visibility was horrible, about 5 feet. Became a challenge. My poor wife, who when she first got into diving, had a little bit of a battle with, or a wrestling match with kind of a bit of claustrophobia, although it wasn't truly claustrophobia. It was just the idea of having the water pressing in on you and having a limited visibility and breathing through the regulator and having the bubbles in your face. It can be disconcerting. And so, and she no longer has those issues, but here we were diving, getting deeper, and it was getting a little darker because the visibility was bad and the silt had started to hang. Various particulates in the water were hanging in suspended in the water, and so that just creates more of a disorientation. She was literally getting a bit of vertigo, and so we ended up having to kind of come up more shallow to where there was more light piercing through the particulates, and we were able to finish out the dive, and it was okay. For me, that's why I'm Scubadog. I will dive with anybody, anytime, anywhere. So anytime for me to get in the water is a fun time. So I was enjoying myself. It was a shorter dive than I normally like to do, but that's okay. Like I said, it got me in the water, which was cool. Looks like we have a couple of guests in the chat room, but maybe they'll pipe in and share their thoughts or questions or anything like that. We always try to encourage folks to participate. One of the big challenges that we have in this area overall is increasing the awareness of scuba diving in the area. I cannot tell you how many times I've run into people who are here for a time and maybe even are scuba divers. They're certified, and they're about to leave, being transferred out because we are a military town. We also have the Border Patrol, so those folks move around a little bit too. And running into them, and they discover I'm a instructor, an avid diver, and they say, "Oh, well, I didn't know there's diving here." And it gets very frustrating for me. This is a small town. We have about 40,000, give or take. And there are a couple of radio stations in town that nobody really listens to, and there is a TV station that is trying to get off the ground, but of course they run the challenge of competing with satellite, and of course other more sophisticated, well-funded, well-produced cable stations, because obviously they're broadcast and on cable. And then of course we've got a newspaper that almost nobody reads. So what you find is your target demographic is going to be listened to Wi-Fi or internet radio if they've got their smartphone plugged in, or they're listening to satellite radio if they've got XM or Sirius, or they're listening to CDs, or just stuff canned onto their iPod or their smartphone. So, or they might actually listen to radio, but for the most part, it's hard to tie down our local demographic with any kind of centralized communication. So getting the word out that, hey, guess what? People dive here is a challenge at best. So, we have the Facebook page. We have a number of ways of communicating with folks. And here, the points we're trying to get across as a dive club, as myself as a diver, as this podcast is, for those who are certified, diving makes you a diver. I have a hard time with people who say, yeah, I'm a diver, and then I ask them when the last time they dove, and it's 3 years ago or 7 years ago, or, I only go diving out in salt water. I'm sorry that you can't keep your skills up as a diver. Diving makes you a diver. So what I'm trying to say is, those of you who are certified, dive frequently, even if it's in less than ideal conditions. Getting the skills tight and keeping them tight is what will enable you going to these great places like Fiji and the Great Barrier Reef and Cozumel and the Keys or wherever you like to dive. That's what's going to get you to those places where you're just enjoying it. You're not thinking about the skill set or any of that stuff. You've got it down. Another thing to do is we're trying to get folks to be proactive. Since I work at the Air Force Base here, I frequently hear a comment from folks who are coming into the area as military or, especially military folks, especially the younger single types. There's nothing to do here. Well, that's wrong. The truth is there's plenty to do here if you get off the couch and actually go out there and find something to do. My life is absolutely full to the brim. I have to force into my schedule opportunities to take advantage of recreational time, and I absolutely am bent on doing that. I refuse to be a slave to everybody else. I have my regular work job, and I have the scuba diving classes that I teach once a month at the end of every month, and I have the praise and worship teams that I lead at church. I'm an elder at church, so obviously that takes up time too. I get involved in a number of other things. I have the podcast, which we're looking at possibly expanding production with podcasts here at the studio. And so I have very little time free to just do stuff that I want to do. So I intentionally have to set aside time to recreationally dive, and as well as go to other events, participate in things. Every once in a while, I'm in a Upstagers, which is the local community theater group. Every once in a while, I'm in a play involved with them. I used to be a lot more involved with them, and I got so many things going on. I have to be much more sparing of my time with the Upstagers even. Nice little refreshing drink with my Mountain Lightning. And then, of course, then there are other things just around the house that take care. As you hear one of our dogs barking in the background there, probably. We've been dealing with a couple of ailing dogs, and so that takes some time and nurturing for that. Anybody who's a parent knows how that goes too. But you have time for what you make time for. So if you are a diver or if you are interested in diving, inquire, ask folks about it. I just received a phone call today from a friend of mine who actually owns a large cascade a cascade system with compressor that one of the local dive shops that has since closed its doors was using for doing air fills for scuba divers. And he actually owned it, and it's basically been unused since the dive shop closed. Well, he finally, rather than see it leave the area, somebody buying it, he's been doing a lot of work to set up a building and have it moved and get it all ready so it can be used. So I'm anxiously waiting to hear that, hey, it's up and running, and that I can start advertising it so I can get some business out of it, as well as folks who do come into this area. They kind of get upset when they find there's potential diving here but no actual dive shop. I can support certain things because I have a mobile dive center. Once Mike McCarson, the owner of the compressor and cascade system, gets that thing up and running, there may be opportunities to do something with him too, so that he can support local diving even above just doing air fills. So things are starting to move, but you've got to ask people. Check the internet. Cannot stress enough how if you do searches, if you do Google or Bing searches for scuba diving, Amistad, Del Rio, you will see the Del Rio Dive Club show up. Facebook and the website, and so inquiry about that. Also, if you are interested in scuba diving, you've never tried it, but would like to, we're trying to get some more Discover Scuba events going on. We just had one last month that was successful. Hopefully it'll turn into some folks actually want to scuba dive, but that's the best way to try it out, in a pool, where you're in a protected environment, no harm, no foul. You can see what it's like to do it. Certainly you can contact us. You can contact us on the Facebook page to see if we could set something up, especially if you have a group of people that want to have some sort of a presentation of a Discover Scuba event. We'll be happy to set that up for you. No issues there. Other ways you can contact us. Let me bring this up. Things that we have available for you are, oops, get the right one, although that is very important. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. Through the DelRioDiveClub.com, the Facebook page, facebook.com/Del Rio Dive Club. It's cut off there. Let me see if I can expand that. There it is. I love this software, although it does have some bugs I'm trying to work through. Also, of course, if you're watching this show live, you've already found us, but spread the word. We do this show typically every Saturday at 8 o'clock, and you can always catch us on YouTube as well, and Vimeo. Just do a search for Two Guys Who Dive, and you'll find our episodes. And let's see. Okay. Also, you can send us an email at drdc@delriodiveclub.com. That's just one of many ways to get a hold of us. And do we have something else? Yeah, talk it up. That's the important thing. Spread the word to everybody. Since there is no central point of communication here in Del Rio that everybody goes to, unlike larger towns, word of mouth goes a long way. Like I said, I just got a call from a woman today whose husband is certified, but she's not, and she wants to get certified. And so Mr. McCarson, who has the compressor, the cascade system, said, hey, I know an instructor in town. So she's going to be trying to set that up for probably my July class. So looking forward to that. But that's the way to network yourself. Come to the dive club meetings the third Thursday of every month. We meet at one of the restaurants in town. You can check out the dive club website or also the Facebook page. The Facebook page is seeing a lot more activity, I think. But if you check that out, you can just pop by and talk to us. We'll share with you anything we have. Sometimes I bring the laptop if we've done some diving and I've got some video. I'll put that up there and just give folks a chance to kind of take a look at stuff that we've done and find out if it's for you. The best way to find out if you can handle diving is certainly as a Discover Scuba event or just trying it out. A number of folks have done the what they call a resort course, going out to any of the Caribbean or other tropical type resorts. A lot of times they will have their own dive operation there, and they will do it's essentially a Discover Scuba course, but it moves you into open water so you can do a limited depth and experience dive, but it gets you out there trying it out. In our dive today, we were just finishing it up. I talked to a young man who talked about it. He said, "Yeah, I've actually done a couple of resort courses, and I enjoy it. Just don't have a lot of time to go through the whole thing." That's the thing. Most of your certifying agencies have been gradually improving their curriculum so that there's a large part of either online or self-study part ahead that takes care of most of the academics, and then you really just get together for the time to work the practical application. In other words, get the watermanship out of the way, which is a distance swim and a float, tread water, and then the actual pool work and open water. And you can get that all done. You can get it fairly quick, too. It doesn't have to be a big, drawn-out thing. So for those who are worried that it's going to take a lot of time, it really doesn't have to, especially when you've got the self-study portion that can be done at your own pace till you're ready to jump into the pool work and open water portions. And so why do we do this? We do it because it is a fun hobby. Some people call it a sport. It's not competitive, so even with yourself, so I have a hard time. Matter of fact, I just refuse to call it a sport. But it's a fun activity to do. It's good exercise, even though other than carrying your gear up and down places, like today was definitely a challenge, but other than carrying your gear around, it's not a high-impact activity, but it does burn off a number of calories because diving under pressure does require some work on your body's part, even though you don't necessarily notice it. Although you will find that you are hungry at the end of a dive, typically. But we do it so we can go out to different places and see new things and meet new people. It's amazing the types of people that you meet all over the country and certainly the world who are divers. I mean, all body types, all personality types are out there enjoying scuba diving, and it's so easy to do. As a matter of fact, if I recall correctly, let's see if I can open this up. Somebody famous was just got certified. You might recognize this person. That is Dina Dobrev. I'm not sure I pronounced her last name correctly. From the Vampire Diaries. She got certified back in December, and she has found it to be an awesome activity to do. Here's a shot of her in her scuba gear. She was in, I think she said she was in Bora Bora where she got certified. I'm like, well, that's just about 8 shades of awesome right there. But it just shows you there are a number of famous people that of the younger set that get into diving because it's easy to get into. Some would say it's expensive. I don't really consider it tremendously expensive compared to a lot of sports or other activities where you buy tons of gear and get involved in. But it's easy to do and very enjoyable. You've got a number of folks. Katie Holmes, matter of fact, I think, who's just as announced she's getting divorced from Tom Cruise. Didn't see that coming, did we? She's a certified diver. A former Jessica Alba. She actually was for a very short time lived here in Del Rio. Her parents were Air Force, so she actually went to the high school here. So everybody's like, "Oh, former Del Rio and Jessica Alba." But of course, she made a pretty popular movie that involved a lot of scuba diving. So there's a number of those folks who get into diving. So if you're one of those followers, you just try to do everything that the people that you're a fan of gets into. This is one of those things that you can get into. Scuba diving is not difficult to do. One of the issues that we try to support around Del Rio is, of course, local diving. Now, local diving doesn't necessarily mean that you are diving locally, although we have Lake Amistad, and of course we have San Felipe Creek, which is maybe 8 feet if you dig a hole in places. But it's the water is spring fed. It's constant 72 to 76 year round. A lot of folks go out swimming there, but you can go out there diving. I mean, I go out there every so often. I'll take some classes out there, whatever. But it's a nice area to just kind of cruise up and down, fairly shallow if you're not feeling like doing any deep diving. It's not tremendously fast, so you can work your way upstream and then kind of cruise on down back to an area that's called Tardy Dam, and it's a kind of a nice area. There's a lot of picnic tables, plenty of parking. For folks we usually will let in there and then go upstream, because you always start your dive. If you're going to dive against the current, you'd start your dive against the current so that when you get tired, then you can basically just swim with the current or just float with it. And it's a nice little ride. It's even more fun if you have one of those scooters, which I got to try out there, which was a lot of fun too. But so we try to encourage folks to get into diving here. And then there are other streams and small lakes or whatever in the surrounding area that you can dive at. And then we also take a trip every so often up to Balmorhea State Park. Balmorhea State Park, which if you watched the last couple episodes, you saw some video from our latest trip there. And we've got another one coming up in July that we're really looking forward to. We've got a pretty good size of a group going. Not as many of them are divers, but it's a great place to have an opportunity to try it out. Matter of fact, if you saw the video last week, and you can certainly jump into YouTube or Vimeo and check out the video from there, so you can kind of get an idea what that's like. But here are we've got some pictures we're going to show up here. Make sure I got this. So here's a shot where all the people congregate in the pool area. Now, I call it a pool because essentially it is pool-like. Oops. Can I go backwards? See if I can go backwards on this. Dun, dun, dun. There we go. Oops. It doesn't want to stay there. Yeah, there we go. Play. Stop the slideshow. That's what I want. All right. So this is the area where you see some of the tents all, or gazebos set up, whatever you want to call them. That's a common sight there. You'll see there are limited picnic tables there. We see there's a number of trees. This shot is taken from as you walk into the enclosed area, because it's all fenced in, because obviously folks could get in there and drown if it's not protected. There are no lifeguards. There are no lifeguards there, but the Park Service obviously doesn't want to incur a liability from somebody sneaking in while it's closed and just either creating damage or certainly hurting themselves. But it's a beautiful, beautiful area. It's a U-shaped pool, but has mostly a natural bottom because it's all spring-fed. And literally spring-fed from underneath. I mean, it's not like there's something pouring into it. There are areas at various points in the pool area, where you can see the water bubbling up through the sand or from under rocks. It's pretty neat. So you have a number of trees there. You have picnic tables, and you can bring your little tent and set it up over a picnic table, or bring your own. Some of the lessons learned we had from this last trip. We got there early enough so that we were able to set up our gazebo tent over a picnic table. But shortly after we got there, tons of people were coming in. And, of course, they were wishing that they had access to a picnic table. So one of those things, if you're not going to get there early, and we're talking right after it opens, 8 o'clock, by 9 o'clock, they're pretty much all taken up. So if you don't think you're going to, if you're not an early riser, you need to make sure you bring some sort of a little table for yourself. So beautiful area there. See if this moves forward. Maybe. There we go. So this is a shot of my lovely wife, Tara. At the end of that walkway that you saw in the previous picture, it opens up into the pool area. Now, this is pretty much the central point of the U. So off in the distance there, or if you were standing the way she's standing, to her left, that all of this in front of her for maybe 50 feet is shallow, and I say probably 4 feet, maybe, yeah, about 4 feet depth. It's all cement bottom, and it's also cement bottom where you see in the distance there, you see a buoy string. That is a guarded area where it's all cement going off to the left, where and it goes much shallower. It's for the little kids, things like that. And also, obviously, if somebody were teaching classes there, they could do the confined water portion right there very easily because it's protected. And then literally swim right off to the right there, straight out away from where Tara's standing at the foot of the steps. You can swim straight out, and it just drops off into the natural bottom, and you are now in open water to do the open water portions of your scuba dive, and it's just gorgeous there. So where Tara was standing, if you swung around to your right, then this is the other side of the U. And this is all deeper, and this all goes, as soon as you jump off the concrete there, you are in the open water area where it's just natural bottom. Towards the back of that picture, you may be able to make out the high dive board. So you see tons of kids all lined up left and right to climb up that and, of course, do all their fancy dives, things like that. And it's fairly deep there. There it's probably the deepest, about 20 feet. So you don't have to worry about hurting anything, but that's where all the kids typically hang out. But you see lots of shade trees in that area. You see some scuba gear set up. So here's another shot of the tent city. This is one of the trips that we had where we had a number of divers going. And you see Scuba Bob's back there. He's setting up his rig. And you see a number of our other dive gear set up. We had a pretty large group going there. Tons of divers there, especially if you're doing, if it's a time where everybody's doing classes. And this last time we were there were at least 4 groups doing classes. It was just scuba mania as far as folks getting certified. And again, every age group you could think of, every body type you can think of. Some are obviously having more trouble than others doing it, but that's all part of the deal. Instructors know how to work with students of different ages, and there we go. Another quick shot of Tara with the typical fish that hang around you a lot. There's me in my natural my natural dive position, which is inverted. I love to dive inverted. I'm sporting the new underwater scooter there. I was having a lot of fun with that. The only thing that you got to be careful about, even though it's got a kind of a cage around, it's a lightweight plastic frame around the propeller, you do have to be careful because the fish are so used to people there. I mean, incredibly used to people. You snap your fingers and literally they come gathering around you because they think you have food. What you have to be careful of is if you're using a scooter down there is making sure that you've got a clear path. I mean, literally clear path where there's not a bunch of little fish hanging around, because they could get pulled into that and get hurt or killed. And we don't like to damage the life underwater. It's just a no-no. And there's another shot of Tara on the scooter. Just head along. You see all the natural bottom. There's rocks, and then there's just the greenery. Actually, in years past, there was a lot more of greenery down there, a lot more plant life. There's a shot of one of the classes. Obviously, new students don't have really good buoyancy control, so they're still getting this whole idea of the flippers thing down, and so they kick up a lot of silt, and that's why the visibility isn't as good when there's students there. Another shot of the natural life, natural bottom, and some of the typical fish we see. This is all taken with my Intova IC10 camera. I'm still experimenting with it. I want to get a nicer camera, but the little pygmy, I call them pygmy catfish. The Park Service would probably correct me, say, oh, well, they're called this. But these are small catfish. They're about a foot or maybe a little bit more. Tons of those hanging around. They're typically under rocks. Here's one of the areas that I wasn't aware of as many times I've been diving there, but this is an area where a lot of the water is feeding up into. It's underneath the rock, but it comes out a pretty good stream. If you look when you're diving there, you'll see catfish swimming strong against the current there. Another shot. I think this came up pretty good. I was playing with exposures on the camera to kind of get that sunlight through the water look. I love those kind of images. Here's a snapshot of one of the areas where the spring is literally coming up through the sand, and because it churns it up so much, it does create kind of a sandy bottom there. And a lot of the fish hang around there because it stirs up nutrients and things that they can eat. And next we have, maybe that's it. I think that may be the last picture I had for that setup. So you can see that the area there is beautiful. I've got some video I took kind of walking along where I don't have it up for this week. I may put it up there next week. But I do have some video that I took with my Lumia 900 Windows Phone 7 device on our trip as we were just kind of walking around. We had a storm building up, so I was kind of trying to pick up some of the lightning shots. But you get a kind of a little view of the cabin areas, which have a nice little stream where the outflow from the spring feeds this little man-made canal system around there. And it's just a beautiful area, lots of trees. The cabins are nice, but very sparse. And you have to reserve those well in advance. As a matter of fact, we started reserving or making our reservations back in April. And the earliest that we could get cabins was August. Thankfully, that's great because the August trip happens to be on the weekend that Tara and I share our wedding anniversary. So it'll be nice having a cabin for that. But the rest of the time, we have to schlep the camping spots with everybody else, which creates its own number of challenges. I think I shared last week about the trip to Balmorhea, because you get all manner of folks there, and some of them are just very rude and inconsiderate of folks pulling in at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and they've got their headlights, poured right into your tent, and they open their car door or their truck door, and they're blaring their country music or whatever, and you're trying to sleep, and they're trying to figure out how to get into their camping spot. I'm like, seriously? Really? Roo. So, yeah, be considerate when you go camping at places like that. There are other folks that probably are having to go to bed a little bit early. When you have that many dive classes going on, that everybody's got to be in, getting out to the pool, to the dive area, 8 o'clock when it opens. They're getting up pretty early to do the breakfast thing and kind of just wake up, get prepped for the actual class. So, a lot of them will get to bed pretty early the night before. So be considerate of folks when you go to these places. But we've got, like I said, we've got a pretty good set of trips lined up. Speaking of trips, let me throw up the slide with our trips, training, and tech. So we've got our next Balmorhea State Park trips 13 through 14 July, as well as 17 through 18 August. We may do some later ones because, like I said, the water there stays 72, 76, like San Felipe Creek, being spring-fed itself as well. The temperatures are consistent, and so as long as you can handle the surface air, it's pretty enjoyable. So doing a September, October, or even sometimes a November trip is not outside of the realm of possibility. So we have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 of us going up to Balmorhea on the 13th, the weekend of the 13th, but with the more the merrier. So if you think you might be available at that time frame, we'd love to have you up there. Also, we could be convinced to do at least part of a class there if you happen to be working through your certification, just need to knock out the open water portions and want to do the trip with us. I can knock out those training dives with you very easily. So by all means, let me know. Maybe we can work something out. And then speaking of classes, still got 2 more scheduled, although I can certainly do more as the need arises, and I can do special ones if we work out the schedule for it. Cost you a little bit more, but be happy to do it. So we've got 26 through 29 July, so you need to get signed up here this next week if you're going to be part of that, so I can get your training materials to you and get your so you have plenty of time to do the self-study, and so we get together for the actual in-water portion. And then 23rd through 26th of August, and again, the first week of August would be the best, the latest that you can sign up there. So by all means, like to have you on one of our trips. We'd still like to try and squirrel away a trip down to the Gulf Coast. I have never, ever been to the Gulf Coast of Texas to do some diving, but we came close about the time when we had all this water and flood, and it just washed everything out into the Gulf and just silted it up, so it made diving horrible, so we ended up canceling that trip. But trying to get that going. It looks like we have some visitors at the house here, so we've got the dogs all going crazy. So I apologize for all the noise going on with them. But, we like to go on the trips. We like to support the local diving by having these get-togethers going there. So, again, diving makes you a diver. So if you want to participate in these things, we need to know earlier rather than later that you're available to do it. They're well worth the trip, especially Balmorhea State Park. It's a beautiful area. Nice view of the Davis Mountains. It's cooler in the evenings. Still can get pretty warm, but it's at an elevation of 3,000 feet, so it does get a little bit, the temperatures are a little bit more manageable compared to right here in Heater City of Del Rio, Texas. So those of you who follow the podcast know that I am not an Apple fan. And, of course, my co-host, Scuba Bob, Robert Garza, is an Apple fan. And so we kind of spar back and forth talking about that. But since he's not here, I get to kind of talk about my stuff, or things that I like. I do not give Microsoft any slack when they screw up with their decisions with, like, the Windows Phone or the desktop. But they've had a series of announcements here recently that have been kind of surprising because Microsoft is a software company. They typically, other than the Xbox and a couple of little experiments here and there, the Zune, the Kin, they generally are not a hardware company. And with the exception of the Xbox, which has been phenomenally successful, Microsoft has not been successful when they play in the hardware arena. But they the previous week they did a couple of huge announcements. One was what's coming with Windows Phone 8, and really it's a reboot. I don't think there's any other way to describe it. I love Windows Phone 7, especially with the latest updates, and especially the Nokia Lumia line, because Nokia has done for the Windows phones that all the other OEMs have just flat out failed to do. Nokia comes up with updates and adds more features and capability to their devices that just impress me. I know Nokia has been having a hard time keeping it together. Their stock prices dropped because they've had to shift everything. You know, they were making their Symbian phones, etc., which were wildly popular all over the world. But shifting into the smartphone arena, they kind of had to toss just about everything out the window and start from scratch. And they took a huge risk lining up with Microsoft. But they really kind of had no choice. With Nokia, they could either be another Android phone and just get swallowed up in the sea of Android phones that come out, a new one every week, which is the new best thing. This beats all of them, and then another week later comes and another one beats it out. So, you know, you can't trust anything with the Android devices because they just keep topping it. It's just a plethora of plastic that comes out. So Nokia had just about no other choice, so they went with Microsoft. And I think that their devices are easily the best ones that are out there for Windows Phone. Now, having said that, here we come this past week, and Microsoft announces Windows Phone 8, and it's phenomenal. I mean, I think that they're bringing all the features to it that people have been saying, well, why don't you have this because Android has that? Why don't you have this because iPhone has that? Well, now let all the whining cease. They're bringing it big time. Now, the downside, of course, and this is where probably 50% of the Windows Phone enthusiasts are kind of going, what the huh? There is no upgrade path from Windows 7.5, which will soon be Windows Phone 7.8, to Windows Phone 8, and here's why. And this is way uber tech stuff, so forgive me if I'm talking way too tech for some of you folks, but this is my podcast, so I can do what I want. those who are followers of this kind of stuff will dig it though. Even Windows Phone 7 had the old Windows CE core, the kernel. And that goes all the way back to the old Pocket PC and Windows Mobile days, which became Windows Mobile Phone. But that core was at the heart of even Windows Phone 7. It just had huge cosmetic front end and API changes that really expanded its capability. Enter Windows Phone 8, which is based on WinRT, which is the new kernel for the Windows 8 desktop and tablets. So, whereas, and really all of what Microsoft has done is just upset the apple cart completely. What they did was you had their mobile devices, which were built on the WinCE kernel, and then you had, for the longest time, you had the desktops that were built on at least the last 10 years, built on the Windows NT kernel. Okay? So, which graduated from the old Win32 kernel. So, you had Windows NT, which was powering your desktop, and you had WinCE that was powering the mobile devices. Now, what they've done, and this is smart, and this is where it was all going. What they've done is they've taken the WinRT kernel, and that is what is there. Everything on the desktop is moving to that. Everything in the mobile is moving to that. What does that get you? That gets you, of course, that means that backward compatibility or ability to move from old hardware onto the new stuff becomes much more limited, certainly with the smartphone arena, because those aren't quite full-fledged PCs or tablets yet. They're getting there, but they're not quite there. What that also does is it now brings all of those systems together. So what that means you can do is almost seamlessly move software from one device to the other. Certainly from the desktops to the tablets. Very little, for you developers out there, very little coding has to change to make a piece of software that you write for the desktop or tablet to make it work also on the phone and vice versa. That's huge for developers because there's not a lot of development time to move from platform to platform. So you can maximize your profits because you reduce the amount of work that you have to do to go cross-platform. For people like me whose nirvana is being able to sit down at my desktop and work on something, a Word document, whatever, then get up, grab my tablet, and literally pick up where I left off, and then maybe set my tablet down and I can grab my smartphone and continue on. That's gold for me. That's my nirvana. Now, speaking of tablets, now Microsoft, contrary to popular belief, the iPad is not the first great thing that came along. I mean, they weren't the first in line with tablets, so it kind of is disingenuous for critics to say, Microsoft is late to the party for tablets. No, they've been around in the tablet arena for a long time. Where I work, we even had some of the Windows XP tablets. Now, the problem was Apple made touch attractive. But prior to that, you did not have capacitive type screens. They were all, you used a stylus, which I love. There's some definite strengths to that, notably the ability to transcribe. I loved that on my old Pocket PC and Windows Mobile devices, where I could be, instead of trying to type something in text or in a Word document because Office comes on your Windows Mobile devices, what I liked was being able, if I'm in church wanting to take notes, I just whipped out the stylus and I could just write in cursive on the screen and it transcribed it into regular text. It was great. I didn't have to think about it. I just wrote. Well, of course, you can't do that with touchscreens, or can you? Microsoft announced also this past week the Surface, which is an awesome device. And I'm going to bring up some screenshots here. Here's what they introduced. And this is one of those devices they are making. Well, their engineers designed this thing from scratch. They looked at all the things that were great about iPad and some of the other tablets that are out there, and all the things that were like, meh. And they said, how can we make this a much more enjoyable experience and work the whole Metro environment? Well, here's what they did. They came up with a tight piece of hardware that it's about the same dimensions as the iPad, so it's a 10-inch screen. Very, very light. It's got what they call vapor mag. It's a vaporized magnesium. In other words, they vaporize it so it can be formed into these perfect shapes and pieces of the tablet. So it is a tight device, and lightweight too, to make this thing. And then you'll notice that it's got this keyboard. Now, when they were introducing it, it was kind of cool because first, from what you could see, it just looked like a magnetically attached, similar to the protective cover that you can get for the iPad that kind of folds up. It's magnetic. This does the same kind of thing, but it looked like just a cover, but without the flexibility. Well, there was a reason. When he flipped it around, you see this keyboard. I mean, this took a moment to catch the folks who were watching the announcement, but I immediately was like, oh, now this is awesome. Now, the beauty of this thing is they called it the touch cover because it is really thin. I'm going to show you a picture here in a second of a side view, how thin this thing is, because it really is like a cover. So you protect your screen, but when you flip it open, and since it's magnetic, it easily is removed and easily attached. It's non-responsive as far as physical. There's no tactile response, but it's a full keyboard. I mean, you can type on it and just go nuts. Now you'll notice they realize that some folks demand a tactile response. They don't feel comfortable just tapping on a surface. So what they did was they came up with the type cover. So it's a little bit thicker, but it's still really thin, but it does have tactile response. So you can actually feel the key presses. So if you are one of those that absolutely needs a tactile response for typing, and it snaps on the same way, it's magnetic. It's so easy. It's beautiful. Now, here's the side view. This is with the touch cover. This is thin. This is like a credit card thin. And you see it folds up. And oh, by the way, because the way the magnetic portion works, and you see the folds right at the hinge, so it can flip around behind the device, so it's out of your way. And what's neat is when you flip it around, the surface knows that and turns off the keyboard. So you don't actually. So when you're holding it with the cover flipped behind, you don't have accidental keystrokes. It only works when it's flipped around forward like this. That's just brilliant. Now you'll notice it has a kickstand here, and again, they describe this thing as folks who've handled this themselves have said this kickstand feels sturdy. I mean, and it disappears. It literally disappears into the body, but it's so easy to flip out. And this is the natural position. So suddenly, you have this device that easily operates as a tablet, but then suddenly, within a mere second, opens up and is like a notebook computer. I'm like, when I saw this, I'm cheering internally because this is great. Now, it has front and rear facing cameras, so you can do the whole Skype thing. And, oh, by the way, the camera on the rear facing camera on this is aimed at 22 degrees, because if you'll notice, this is a 22-degree angle from the table to the way the tablet itself actually points. And so that rear-facing camera points at 22 degrees so that it's at the right angle to catch you and whatever you're shooting. So your natural condition, your natural position for taking camera shots isn't necessarily to hold the thing straight up. You hold it at a little bit of an angle. That's the natural position. So they realized that. They put a lot of thought into this. Now you may have noticed that in the first picture the touch surface was blue, kind of like that Metro blue, and this one is orange. Well, guess what, folks? You can get the touch surface in white, orange, pink, and blue. I was a little disappointed it didn't come in purple because that's my favorite color, and I absolutely would get one in purple. I have no doubt that eventually those will come out if this thing takes off. And then, of course, you can get the type cover, which only comes in black. But this is beautiful. Now, they demoed 2 different versions of this tablet. Let me switch back to the first shot here. There we go. They demoed 2 different versions of this thing. They have one that's called the Surface RT. That's interesting. Why am I getting feedback here? And the Windows 8 Pro version. It seems like my broadcast has gone off or something. Good thing I'm recording. But the Windows RT version. Let me check some audio here. What's going on? Oh, that's right. Huh. I'm checking out some technical difficulties here. Let me cut the live broadcast and turn it back on. Oh, of course, commercial. So anyway, they've got the WinRT version, which is 9.3 millimeters thick and has the 10.6 clear type HD display. It's got a 31.5 kilowatt hour or watt hour battery. Supports micro SD, USB 2.0, micro HD video out, so you can actually connect to an external monitor, which is awesome. And the 2x2, in other words, dual MIMO or MIMO, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, antenna. So your Wi-Fi experience. This is Wi-Fi. These are Wi-Fi only devices right now. I will be surprised if they don't come up with some cell type versions later. But so it's got dual antennas on it. So your Wi-Fi experience is going to be extremely powerful. The WinRT version also comes with Office 15. I think, which is now being called Office 2013. But it's got the apps, and it comes with either the touch cover or the type cover. And it comes in either a 32 gigabyte or 64 gigabyte version. Now, the Windows 8 Pro is a little bit thicker. It's 13.5 millimeters thick because it's supporting the Intel processor, which basically makes it like a notebook. Again, the same size screen, but it says it's full HD display. Probably got a more powerful graphics processor in it. It's got, because obviously it's using Intel chips instead of the ARM processor in the WinRT, it's got a 42 watt hour battery on it, so it can get decent life. It supports the micro SD XC cards, as well as USB 3.0, has the mini DisplayPort video, which is very popular. It's also got the 2x2 MIMO or MIMO antenna, And here's the cool thing. It's got, of course, it supports the touch cover, the type cover, and a pen with palm block. Now, they also demoed this. It supports digital ink. So whatever you're doing on the screen, you can actually write stuff on it. This is for people like me who loved the stylus for what it could do. This is phenomenal. Now, this one will come in either the 64 gigabyte or 128 gigabyte storage version. So we're talking some serious awesomeness with this device. And I'll be honest with you, I'm waiting to see what Nokia comes up with. Now, I've heard the hue and cry from all the OEMs out there like, oh, well, you're making your own device. We're not going to get in that game. They're whining about it. Matter of fact, I think HP, who will be doing Windows 8 tablets, said we're not going to do a WinRT version because I guess they don't think they can touch that. So they're kind of out of that game. But I'm anxious to see what Nokia comes up with because I love the Lumia 900. That is one of the most fantastically designed phones out there. But it'll be interesting to see what they come up with as a Windows 8 tablet. I'll be surprised if it doesn't give them some serious competition. But unless they do come up with something that is super impressive, that looks something probably like the Lumia 900, just larger, I'll venture a guess to say that the Microsoft Surface, probably the Pro version, because it will probably replace my laptop. That will be my first tablet. For those of you who watched a previous podcast where I talked about my 6-hour agonizing experience with the iPad 2, there is no way in Hades I'm going to ever have one of those. If anybody ever gives me one, I will promptly take it on a dive with me. That's how bad I hate those things. It's garbage. But that's my opinion because I hated the way it operated. It was like going through mud. My older Windows 7 notebook outperforms that thing. So yeah, I've been working with the Windows 8. I worked with the developer preview, the consumer preview, and now the release preview. It's still got some issues, and I've seen there are a number of changes still coming for the actual release to manufacturers, the RTM version. But I love it. I really do. I've been slowly testing some of the hardware things because there are some pieces that I absolutely have to have it work with before I can go make it my relied upon operating system. But I just really like it. Looking forward to what it's going to do, especially bringing the whole ecosystem together. So I'll probably end up with a Microsoft Surface tablet. Of course, I've got my Windows Phone 7 device, which may eventually be switched out for Windows Phone 8. I probably, because I like the 900 so much, I'm probably not going to jump on the first round of the Windows Phone 8 devices because I think everybody's going to be rushing to get those out. I'll probably wait to the second round of those and see what comes out. And then, of course, my desktop will be Windows 8. So that covers my jumping all up and down on the Windows arena. Now, this was supposed to be Scuba Bob's week for a commercial. And I almost was just going to skip a commercial altogether. But I did notice something out there that I do want to kind of promote. I've not actually used these, but because those of you who've seen some of my previous commercials or heard my previous rantings about equipment, I really like Oceanic equipment. Well-built, reasonably priced for the kind of feature set that you get. And so what I noticed that they've come up with now, they have a number of lines in their regulators, which is the part you actually breathe through. And what they have now is the Alpha 9, which I thought was pretty cool. These days, the regulators and other equipment, BCs, etc., are not just about the quality of the gear, the quality that goes in, but it's also about the style. And what impressed me, as you can see here, is the Alpha 9, kind of like the Microsoft Surface with the touch cover. The regulators, the same internals and same actual physical design, but you can get it in different colors. So if you're trying to color coordinate your gear, you can get it in this kind of almost a metal blue kind of a look, or white, or yellow orange, or pink. No, my wife would probably like that. But very, very high-performing regulators. I've seen a number of reviews on their performance, and most folks have been surprised at how well these perform for being what coming across as looking like a fairly simplistic design. But this is just another example of a scuba company like Oceanic appealing to the style features, not just the quality of how the components are put together and how it operates. So if you are of discriminating taste and you're looking to get into scuba diving or expand your gear options, and you want to go to a color coordinated rig, I encourage you to take a look at the Oceanic line, the Alpha 9 regulator, and choose a color that suits you. I think you'll be pleased with it. I use a number of Oceanic products, their computers, some of their regs, and I've yet to be disappointed in what they have put out. Oceanic, innovation first, is their motto. So, well, we're running a little bit late. You would think, with me just going solo, that it would be a challenge to even fill up an hour. But as my wife will tell you, I can talk to a wall. So even though I'm here all by myself,
In my R&D, I truly am indeed alone again.
yes, I am alone again, naturally.
Alone again.
And so until next week, we'll see you on another podcast of Two Guys Who Dive.